Beware of spoilers, you have been warned.
Moonknight. What in the DID is this? I've discussed DID before, probably mentioned how Mr. Robot was one of the best depictions of DID, and I didn't appreciate that until way after watching, once I learned more about DID. Understanding dissociative identity disorder and the concept of alters was not expecting to apply this to Moonlight. Like, this isn't a possession like Ghost Rider or a symbiote like Venom. Moonknight literally has multiple personalities. We only see two, of course, Mark and Steve. Mark is, I guess, the host, maybe considered the original, very similar to the Elliot we know in Mr. Robot. Steve is oblivious to the fact that he's an alter, even though he's considered the primary protector. Steve was how Mark was able to be shielded by his childhood trauma. I very much wonder if there were other alters at some point. Alters exist to protect the host, so I'm wondering if there were other alters at some point that fused back into Mark, erasing any amnesia barriers as Mark accepted his past. In a turn of events, it's now the protector that is the protected as he comes to terms with this little system of theirs in a very chaotic way. We got Egyptian gods and stuff. I grew up watching The Mummy, so I have an affinity for ancient Egypt and everything about the culture and folklore. We also have Norse mythology integrated through Thor's story, so it's nice to see another mythology represented. I think the overall plot with this whole cult thing was pretty cool. Action sequences were done well, fun and comical when Mark and Steve kept switching. A memorable part was definitely after they got shot and ended up in the Egyptian afterlife. They are now existing as individuals, which makes you wonder. They think so they are. Does this mean alters have their own souls? The hippo moment lives rent-free in our minds always. That was really iconic. Now, after the final battle is over, a third alter is revealed. This could be a little controversial because the concept of evil alters is such a tough stigma DID people deal with. However, we haven't seen what becomes of him or the system as a whole. Not that I'm following the MCU like I did before, but we haven't seen Moonknight again, right? I think there's a right way and a wrong way to approach this potentially evil alter, and I hope they do it right. Overall, it's fun, it's different, it was refreshing to see in a post-Endgame world, and I've definitely included it in my Marvel marathons. It's a great independent title. Oscar Isaac, hello? I mean, I love this guy, and would love to see him with Mr. Fantastic just so we can get him and Pedro Pascal together again. Star of the Week, Josh Hutcherson. Josh was this little kid from Kentucky that just always dreamed of being an actor. It was something he wanted to do his whole childhood as a kid, with great interest in film. After Josh contacted an acting agency at the age of 10, his parents took the risk and helped Josh relocate to LA, where he would spend his middle school years taking acting lessons and trying to break into the industry as a child actor. Little Manhattan is one of his earlier roles. That's pretty well known. To me, I think Zathura is the oldest movie of his that I've seen and one of my personal favorite movies ever. Many grew up with Jumanji, but Zathura was my Jumanji. I played the video game and everything. Speaking of Jumanji, Josh was in the movie RV with Robin Williams. Josh was also the English voice actor for Markle and Ghibli's Howl's Moving Castle. I would say his two biggest breakout roles were Bridge to Terabithia and Journey to the Center of the Earth. Terabithia was a heartfelt film with Josh and Anna Sophia Robb, a staple in my generation's collective childhood trauma. Center of the Earth was meant to be a blockbuster 3D family adventure with Brendan Fraser. Not sure how well it did, but I did enjoy it so much as a kid. Growing up watching this selection of Josh's child actor era, I was a teen when The Hunger Games came out. I saw the first movie in theaters, I read the books the summer after, and became exposed to the fandom on the internet by the time Catching Fire released. Obviously, as an obsessive fangirl, the Hunger Games franchise was all the hype, but growing up as a Josh fan specifically, it was so great to see Josh Hutcherson portray Peeta Mellark in all 4 movies. This solidified his place in pop culture. He was officially one of my favorite actors by this point. These were such great movies, and I'm so glad Josh was a part of them. Some of his other movies over the years include Detention, Red Dawn, Rusted, the animated film Epic, the sequel to Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Mysterious Island, where Brendan Fraser was replaced by The Rock. Josh starred in the show Future Man. He was also in The Disaster Artist, which I guess was a biopic about the making of The Room. Josh played the guy who played Danny. Lately, Josh has been the lead in the Five Nights at Freddy's movies. Means, lore, freaky animatronics. I've been a fan of FNAF since 2015, so again, nice to see Josh in yet another franchise I'm so fond of. Josh has been one of my favorite actors since I was a kid. Him and Abigail Breslin were kids from my generation that I grew up watching as they grew up in film. I've literally seen them grow as I have. And with so many core memories of Josh, it's always a pleasure following his career after all this time. Sci Fi Double Feature. Flash Gordon. Queen brought me to Flash Gordon in the first place. Like, that's pop culture right there. I went in expecting this eccentric cult classic sci-fi experience, and that's exactly what I got. The overall style is reminiscent of 1950s sci-fi films, at least to me it does. Between the costuming and set design, it sort of gives the aesthetic of like a comic book or cartoon or something, and that's pretty cool. The story is an average hero-villain plot. I think this honestly fits well with the overall aesthetic. Like, this movie is really meant to be nostalgic. I don't think you're meant to think too deeply, but Queen's soundtrack kind of gives it some edge and intensity and makes it feel epic. Personally, I found Flash Gordon to be fine, but not especially compelling. However, I appreciate it for what it is, and I know there's an audience for it. If you're into retro sci-fi cult classics, this film offers exactly what it promises. The Fifth Element. The Fifth Element feels like a definitive example of 1990s science fiction, blending futuristic ideas with the pacing and attitude of a classic 90s action flick, starring Bruce Willis. While it shares the cult sci-fi label with earlier films, its aesthetic is distinctly of its era, the visual effects hold up surprisingly well, and the film's vibrant energy keeps it moving. Comedy is spot on for me, and the quirky characters have moments that keep up levity and fun in between big action sequences. One of the film's strongest elements is its cast. I did not realize Gary Oldman was Gary Oldman until I revisited the movie in college. I'm not kidding. He was so unrecognizable to me. Amazing. Bruce Willis appreciation here. He brings his charm to Dallas and brings the whole movie together. We got some bold fashion choices to mix with our futuristic environments. The world feels imaginative and lived in. Some iconic scenes, some iconic quotes. The film is cemented as a sci-fi classic, one that continues to resonate with audiences who appreciate stylized world building and flair. Frontiers of Pandora. Finally got around to check out Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. The game ended up falling at the box office, so to speak. Like, I just remember people weren't just not happy with it. It wasn't that popular, and I just had to see where it failed. Honestly, I don't know. It seems great to me. Clearly very underrated. Pandora itself just carries the experience. The movie's already built such a detailed foundation to the Na'vi culture, the wildlife, flora, fauna, so it almost feels impossible for a game like to miss when it comes to world building. It's all there, easy. Everything feels alive, and just exploring is fun on its own. Like, this is the immersive Pandora experience I could have hoped for from an Avatar game. Like, we get our own Ikron. Come on, that's awesome. I like the movies to some extent. The game leans heavily into themes of nature conservation and protecting the land. There's also a deeper layer with the idea of forced assimilation of native people, and it's hard not to connect that to real-world history. Even if you're not analyzing it deeply, it's there in a way that adds weight to what you're doing and makes the story feel more meaningful. I haven't seen the OG movie in a while now, or the new films, but I'm pretty sure the series does well touching upon this as well. Overall, it's a really easy game to get into if you're just looking to enjoy the atmosphere. Story is okay, foraging is interesting. I maybe don't care for infiltrating the white man bases, but whatever. But exploration is where it's at. We got Pandora in all its glory, and that's all I could personally ask for.
That's it for this week. Be sure to follow this podcast and please follow my Twitter and blog at Hollis Films to follow my journey experiencing the entertainment industry's greatest stories. And let me know what you've been fangirling over this week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next week.